Laura Flanders describes how without Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the stakes just got a whole lot higher. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. From Air America days and other events over the years, Laura Flanders now has a new show on PBS stations nationwide. She's the host of Grit TV, contributor to Nation magazine, the author of 6 books, including Blue Grit. True Democrats Take Back Politics and the Politicians. LauraFlanders.org is her website, and her Twitter handle is The LF Show or Grit Laura. Laura, welcome back to the program. It's been a long time since we've talked. Congratulations on your new show.
It's been too long. I'm so happy to hear you, to be with you. And yeah, isn't it exciting? We finally made it onto public television.
I think that's spectacular. I think it's absolutely spectacular. Before we get to your program, I'm curious your thoughts on this particular political moment and how you think Democrats should be playing this out. We heard Tim Kaine this morning on MSNBC saying, basically, I'm just going to try to appeal to Republicans' better side. I'm not sure they have a better side.
Well, you know what? I think you know what I think about that, Tom. You know, I mean, let's face it. You started the morning. I listened to you talking a little bit about, patriarchy and capitalism and the intersection of the two in relation to Harriet Tubman. And of course, I'm thinking about that in relation to Ruth Bader Ginsburg this morning. And the day is one of those days where you either really do look at that glass half full or you really do look at the half empty. I think the Democratic campaign is barely, well, I hate to say this, I won't say what I was going to say, but what I was going to say was something along the lines of doesn't deserve our attention. What does deserve our attention is all of the other organizing that people are doing all across the country. And Friday was one of those days where you saw early voting begin in several states and people lining up for hours to vote. You saw in Virginia, apparently, a mob reminiscent of the Stop the Count, vote count mob in Florida in 2000, which you and I remember well, trying to intimidate voters, it seemed like. I don't know what their intentions were, but it certainly looked like it to me from the TV. And yet people are standing there. They're in their masks. They're showing up. And that's been the story of this whole summer, hasn't it? I mean, this whole year. In a period of social distancing, people have come together, for the most part, looking after each other as they demanded change. And whether the Democratic Party is up to this moment, meaning mobilizing people to do that or not, I think what we've seen people learn over the many years that you and I have been doing this work is nobody's waiting for the Democratic Party's say-so. They are out there organizing, doing their work. I just picked up a yard sign from someone around here who got so tired of not having any yard signs in this rural and small town place that I'm living. He just went out and made his own, and now he's taking a contribution for people that want it. So it's one of those days where, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they say, you can't be what you can't see. And it's just not true. People are constantly setting out to be what they cannot see. Harriet Tubman did it. Ruth Bader Ginsburg did it. And I think people are doing it. They're setting out to make this a democratic election against all the odds. And it's exciting as well as kind of bracing.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I read a piece a while back about community policing that I thought you had written. Am I misremembering that? Did you do a deep dive into community policing?
We did a little bit. I mean, we did a TV show on the subject, and we've linked to a bunch of good articles. The show that we did is airing right now. It started last night. So just so people can be clear, we premiere every Sunday at 11:30 on PBS World, which goes out to about 200 stations around the country. And then we're nationally syndicated on public television stations throughout the week. You can find out what your local station is at our website. Thanks for mentioning it, LauraFlanders.org. And you can also watch the show anytime you want, and any of the shows we've done at our YouTube channel, which is also the Laura Flanders Show. But the show that's airing this week, that premiered yesterday, is about something called the Newark Community Street Team that came together at the initiative of the mayor, Ras Baraka, who brought in a peacekeeper from the, gang wars of L.A., to develop a community organization led by people who've been, quote unquote, on the wrong side of the law, which is to say the police, people who've spent lots of time inside, many of them, are now working together to determine how a good portion of the public safety budget of that South Ward of Newark, New Jersey, is spent. And our show was about how fascinating it is that you find people in the police department and the public safety officer and people in the community who have no reason to be feeling warmly about cops, figuring out how to work together. Well, I say in an understatement of the year, I think, that it's not easy for the police and the policed to collaborate, but they're doing it. And in this year, we saw less violence against people or property in Newark, even during the mobilizations and the reaction to the police killings of this year. Less violence in Newark than almost any other major city, especially given the history that Newark has in people's minds. So it's an inspiring story. I encourage people to check it out.
Yeah, and I've told this story on this program before that back in, I think it was '96 was the year the Olympics came to Atlanta. Louise and I were living in Atlanta, and I was writing a series of novels about a private detective, and a friend of mine was an old police chief, a small town Georgia police chief, and there was not enough security for the Olympics, and so the Georgia Police Academy had opened up the academy for people who wanted to become private detectives, which was the legal rubric that they could use at that time so that they could legally provide security for the Olympics. And I ran through that course. And it was like 6 or 8 weeks, and we lived down there in this little town in Georgia at the police academy. And my sense of it, and I was interacting with all these guys who were just running through the police academy, most of them to become state police, although a lot of small town police forces use it. My sense of it was that about a third of the people that I met there were just decent, average people looking for a job that had a pension where they could retire after 25 years. About a third of them were people who were really Dudley Do-Rights. They really believed in what they were doing. They wanted to make a better world. And about a third of them were complete fascist asses. In fact, one of them beat me up pretty badly when we were practicing, in quotes, hand-to-hand combat. And I'm hopeful that these kinds of policies, like programs like you're talking about, can kind of filter out that last third and raise up those first 2/3. What's your sense of that?
Well, look at the things you need. I mean, we need law, right? So you need to have some barriers, some boundaries within which our police forces, our public safety operators operate. So there's no question. We need litigation that says certain kind of behavior is unacceptable in our police force. You need in public engagement, I think, when it comes to what the job of the so-called public safety officers is. I mean, on our show, Akila Sherrills, who heads up this team, he says, we redefine safety. Well, we define safety as having enough food to eat, a place to live, and, a way to make a living at a livable standard for you and your family. So that is already not just about policing. That's already about investing in communities, supporting local businesses, supporting small business in an era of Amazon. I heard you talking about Amazon. So we're already going outside the police department, and I think that's the call of many of the movement for Black Lives activists, Black Lives Matter. When they talk about defund the police, sure, I think many of them are saying, what would we do if we didn't just call 911, if we didn't take a punitive approach to everything wrong in society? And I think they're getting at that with that slogan. But they're also saying concretely, let's look at these budgets. Where are the funds actually going to and coming from? And so that's two things. So we need laws. We need budgets that apportion responsibility appropriately and resources appropriately. Don't leave it all in the hands of the cops. And then, absolutely, what you're talking about, we need leadership that hones out the people that shouldn't be in that job.
Amen. And Laura, thanks so much for dropping by. We hit a hard break here at 15 after, I'm sorry. It's the Laura Flanders Show on PBS stations nationwide. You can see it all at lauraflanders.org.